Arthur's family truth. My son was already holding the pen out to me when the branch manager grabbed my arm. Not a tap, a firm grip. The kind you don't question, because it comes from someone who already knows something you don't. "Don't sign yet," she said quietly. I didn't react. I hadn't even opened the first page. But something about the way she said it made me stop. My name is Gerald Harmon. I'm 68. I spent 28 years as a criminal investigator for the IRS. I know what a setup looks like. I just never thought I'd need those skills inside my own home. That morning started like any other. Alarm at 7:42. Coffee in hand, still in my robe. I hadn't even opened the blinds yet when my son Donovan knocked on the bedroom door. He was already dressed, jacket buttoned, keys in his fingers. He had that particular energy, the kind a man carries when he's somewhere to be and wants you to feel the same urgency. "Dad, we need to head out. Bank appointment is at 9. I asked what the rush was. He smiled that easy smile I'd known since he was 8 years old. Estate planning. Talked to a financial advisor last week. If we set up the family trust today, saves us both on taxes. Just a few signatures. Won't take an hour. I looked at my coffee. I looked at him. The way he said us sat wrong, but I couldn't place it yet. I told him to give me 20 minutes. He said sure. But he stayed in the doorway while I set my cup down, not exactly hovering, more like monitoring. That was the first thing I noticed. When we left, his wife Brenda kissed him on the cheek. Quick, rehearsed, told me to have a great morning without making eye contact once. I'd spent 28 years reading people for a living. I know what a performance looks like. Donovan drove because he said he knew where parking was easier. 12 minutes to First Southern Bank on Broad Street. He talked the whole way, interest rates, tax deadlines, something about an end-of-month cutoff. I nodded at the right spots and watched Chattanooga roll past the window. Inside, the lobby was cool and quiet. Donovan moved toward the service desk like someone who'd been here before. A young rep, name tag said Clifford, stood up when he saw us coming. Shook Donovan's hand first, then mine. "Mr. Harmon, great to see you again. Documents are all set. Again." I filed that word away, kept my face neutral. Donovan was already pulling out a chair for me. Clifford spread papers across the desk, several pages of dense legal language, little yellow arrow tabs pointing at blank lines. I reached for my glasses. That's when I felt the hand on my arm, firm, deliberate. I turned. A woman in a dark blazer stood beside me, mid-40s, name badge, Diane Mercer, branch manager. No smile. She leaned in slightly, voice low, just loud enough for me. "Don't sign anything yet, Mr. Harmon." She lowered her voice. "Step into my office first. There's something you need to see." Donovan's chair scraped back. He was already on his feet. "Diane, we have an appointment." "This is a routine." She didn't look at him, kept her eyes on mine. This wasn't a routine interruption. It was urgency, controlled. "Just a few minutes," she said. Standard verification for documents of this type. Donovan went quiet. Clifford gathered his papers fast. Too fast, like a man trying to make something disappear. I stood up. "Lead the way," I told her. Her office was off the main lobby, glass walls with the blinds half drawn. She closed the door, pulled something up on her computer, then turned the monitor toward me. "Mr. Harmon, what do you think you are about to sign?" I told her what Donovan had said. Estate planning, family trust, taxes. She pointed to the screen. "These documents give your son full power of attorney. Your accounts, your investments. Your house, not limited, not partial, full." Her finger moved to one specific line. "This clause lets him sell your property without your approval, without your signature." The HVAC hummed, nothing else. I sat down slowly, my hands resting on my knees, went cold. I asked when the documents had been prepared. 6 days ago, your son came in alone on a Wednesday. He told Clifford you were recovering from a health issue and couldn't come in. He asked whether a power of attorney could be executed if a family member certified the principal was of sound mind but temporarily incapacitated. She paused. Clifford noted it, didn't flag it. I found it this morning when I reviewed the day's pending appointments. Through the office window, I could see Donovan standing at the desk, talking to Clifford in a low voice. Back to us, hands moving. The ease he'd walked in with, it was gone. What replaced it was tighter. I asked Diane if she'd seen documents like these before. She nodded once. "More than I'd like to." I thanked her and asked her to keep this between us for now. She agreed without asking why. Some people understand instinctively when a situation calls for discretion. We walked back out. I sat down at the desk. Donovan reset his expression into patience. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said. "I'd like to take these home tonight and read through them before I sign." Clifford blinked. Donovan's jaw tightened just a fraction of a second. Just a fraction, but I saw it. "Dad, the deadline at the end of the month. I've been filing taxes since before you were born, son. One more night won't matter." He laughed, right sound. Wrong rhythm. We drove home mostly in silence. He tried 2 more times to explain the urgency. I said at the right intervals and looked out the window at the Tennessee hills going gold in October. My hand sat still in my lap, but my mind was already working. That evening I went into my study, closed the door, pulled out a yellow legal pad. I wrote down every transaction from the past 9 months. Dates, amounts, what they said it was for. Then I opened my statements, went further back. Before they moved in. 6 months, 12. It took just over 2 hours. When I was done, $38,700 money I couldn't account for. Some of it I handed directly to Donovan, $800. Supplier deposit never materialized. $1,200 certification course, never completed, $4,000 vehicle repair. No invoice, $11,000 business opportunity, explained twice. 2 different stories. The rest came in smaller pieces, $255 weekends. When Brenda was home alone, she had access to my banking. She set it up herself. I thought it was helpful. I sat in my chair and let it settle. They weren't struggling. They were harvesting. I picked up my phone and called Russell Adkins. He's an attorney I'd worked with on financial cases years back, methodical, unsentimental. Exactly what I needed at 10 o'clock at night. He answered on the 3rd ring. I told him I needed an emergency appointment first thing in the morning. He asked if I was all right. I told him I would be once I understood my options. Russell's office is downtown, 3rd floor, overlooking the old courthouse. He read the documents Diane had let me photograph on my phone. His expression moved through several stages, all of them controlled. Full POA, unrestricted. He set my phone on the desk. "You understand what this would have done?" I understood. He leaned back. "Here's what we do. First, we draft a revised estate plan today. Everything in your name, clearly structured. Your house goes into a revocable living trust. Clean terms, no ambiguity. Second, you call First Southern this afternoon and remove both their names from every account. All of it. Third, before you confront anyone or file anything, you need a private investigator. You need documentation of what they've actually done." He paused. "You're not going to like everything they find." I told him I already didn't like what I'd found myself. I could handle the rest. He recommended Beverly Crane, licensed investigator, firm in West Chattanooga, someone he'd worked with before. I called her from the parking garage on my way to the car. She asked the right questions without editorializing. I liked her immediately. She could start that afternoon. On the way home, I stopped and called First Southern, had both names removed from every account, changed every password. Then I moved the bulk of my savings to a new account at a different institution entirely. I left $65,000 in the original account. Enough to look untouched, enough to look like the target they thought they still had. That afternoon, Russell filed the paperwork, establishing the living trust. My house, my assets, everything transferred before close of business. Whatever they were planning, the foundation had just been quietly pulled out from under it. They just didn't know it yet. Beverly called me 4 days later. Her voice was professionally flat, which in my experience means the news underneath it is not. We met the following Thursday morning, clean desk, thick folder. She walked me through it section by section. Donovan owed $31,000 to a private lending operation. Not a bank, not a licensed platform. The kind that sends people to your door when payments stop. 2 payments had already been missed. The 3rd was due in 5 weeks. Brenda had been making transfers out of my primary account for 5 months. $150 here, $280 there, a few as high as $580. Never the same amount twice. Never on a pattern that would trip an automatic alert. She'd been careful, not careful enough. Total transferred without my knowledge or authorization. $5,800 across 14 transactions. There was more. She had accessed my investment account using the same login from my iPad, the one she'd set up for bill pay. She hadn't moved money from it yet, but she'd been inside it regularly, checking balances, checking holdings. Beverly looked up from the folder. She was building a map of everything you have. There were also 2 printed photos taken by my neighbor's security camera. My front porch, Brenda at the door. 2 men from the sedan parked at the curb. A handoff of what looked like documents. Donovan's debt collectors made contact at your address at least twice, Beverly said. Brenda handled both visits. Whether Donovan authorized that or not, she knew about the debt. She'd known for months. I sat with that for a moment. She had known about the $31,000. She'd known about the men coming to collect. She'd known all of it while sitting at my kitchen table, sleeping under my roof, and steering me toward those bank documents. I asked Beverly if she'd provide a formal affidavit. She said yes without hesitating. I thanked her, paid the balance of her fee, and drove home on back roads I didn't usually take. I needed the extra 20 minutes to put everything back in its box before I walked through my front door, because when I walked in, I had to look like nothing had changed. And I was very good at that. That night, I installed a small digital recorder in my study. Nothing illegal. One-party consent. I tucked it behind a stack of books, ran a test, and went to bed. Then I started the performance. I left my glasses on the counter and spent 10 minutes looking for them while Brenda watched. I asked Donovan the same question twice. I stood in front of the refrigerator too long. Small things, specific things. The kind of forgetfulness that's easy to believe in a man my age when you're already looking for it. They were waiting for it. A week in, a pamphlet appeared on the kitchen table. Sunrise Ridge Senior Living. Full-color photos, smiling residents, bright dining rooms. B-Day said she'd picked it up out of curiosity. Just something to keep in mind. I looked at it the way a confused man would, then I left it there and said nothing. 2 days later, Donovan brought it up. His voice was careful, gentle. "Dad, we've been a little worried. You seem tired lately. You sleeping okay?" I told him not well. My back, he nodded slowly. It might be worth talking to someone, just to make sure everything's okay. I told him I'd think about it. That evening I moved most of the money to the new account. I left $14,000 behind. If Brenda checked, and I knew she would, she'd see the drop. Not at their hands, just gone. I needed them to feel the window closing. Desperate people make reckless decisions. I didn't have to wait long. 3 nights later, I heard them in the kitchen. After midnight, their voices carried down the hall. Brenda first, low and controlled. She was always the planner. "We're running out of time. If those documents aren't signed by the end of the month," Donovan cut in, his voice looser than hers. "I'll talk to him again. He trusts me. He didn't sign last week. He got cold feet. You need to push harder this time." Silence for a moment. Then her voice again, harder. "Or we go to Plan B." "What's Plan B?" "We file for guardianship. I know 2 doctors who will do an evaluation. If he gets declared partially incapacitated, he's not incapacitated. He's sharp as anyone I know. We don't need him to actually be incapacitated. We just need one evaluation that says he might be. The legal standard for a preliminary order is low. That's all we need." Silence again. Then Donovan, quieter. "That feels wrong." He'd said wrong. There was a line somewhere in his thinking, and apparently that was it. His wife had no such line. "What's wrong about it?" "He forgets things sometimes. We say we're worried. We get a sympathetic doctor. The preliminary order freezes his ability to make financial decisions on his own. Temporary. That's all we need." "Temporary until what?" "Until we have what we need. Then we let it lapse. He never even has to know what we filed." The refrigerator hummed. "He still has money sitting in that account. I checked Tuesday. We keep the amounts small, same as before." He barely looks at his statements. My son said nothing. His silence was its own answer. The recorder caught every word. The following morning, I called Russell from my car in the driveway while they were still asleep. I played him the relevant section through the phone. His voice, when he responded, was level and precise. "Gerald, come in today. This changes what we file and how we file it. I was there by 9. He also referred me to a criminal attorney. Not for me. I drove home carefully. Same controlled pace I used in the field when I was working a live case and needed to stay invisible. Brenda's car was in the driveway. I found her in the kitchen, laptop open, coffee going. She looked up. "How'd the doctor's appointment go?" "Routine," I said. "Everything's fine." She smiled and went back to her screen. We talked about nothing. The weather, whether the gutters needed cleaning, what to make for dinner. I matched her tone the whole way through, gave her nothing. 2 weeks later, Russell called me. The guardianship petition had been filed. Knox County Probate Court. Signed by both of them. Attached was a letter from a physician I'd never seen or heard of, stating I'd shown signs of memory impairment during a recent wellness visit. I had never been to that wellness visit because it never happened. Russell filed a response the same day. My own doctor of 12 years submitted a statement. My cognitive screening from 8 weeks prior showed 0 deficits. The letter from the unknown physician was immediately flagged for investigation. That afternoon, I filed a police report regarding Brenda's unauthorized transfers. $5,800 grand theft in Tennessee requires a threshold of $1,000. Russell filed the civil fraud complaints the following morning. The bank froze the original account by noon. Brenda found out by 3 o'clock. I was in my study when I heard her voice from the other end of the house, her usual control stripped away, talking fast into her phone. What do you mean flagged? What investigation? Donovan came home an hour later. I heard them behind their closed door, voices low and fast, the sound of people recalculating. I kept my door closed and waited. I had been patient for 3 weeks. I could be patient a little longer. They came to me together that evening. United front. Or at least performing one. Donovan spoke first. His face had the pale, careful look of a man stepping onto ground he wasn't sure would hold. Dad, we got a call from the bank, something about our access being removed. I asked them to do that, I said. He blinked. Why? Because I became aware of financial activity on my accounts that I didn't authorize. Brenda's expression didn't change. She was better at this than he was. Her voice stayed measured. There must be a mistake. I've only ever helped with your bills. You asked me to. Before I said anything else, I reached over to the side table and set something down in front of me. A photograph. My wife. The one I keep on my desk. I didn't explain it, I just let it sit there. Then I opened the folder. I told Brenda the transfers she'd made totaled $5,800 across 14 transactions over 5 months. I read every date and every amount out loud. All 14 of them. Her jaw tightened. Just barely. A small tell. But I'd been watching for it. Donovan turned to look at her. And the guardianship petition, I continued, filed with Knox County Probate Court, signed by both of you, citing a wellness visit I never attended and a physician I have never met. The room went quiet. Donovan put his hand over his face. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Brenda found her voice first. You don't understand the pressure we've been under. The debt, we were going to lose everything. You needed my money, I said. And when I didn't hand it over willingly, you tried to take it. Through a forged power of attorney. Through unauthorized transfers. Through a manufactured medical opinion. While living in my home. At my table. Donovan dropped his hand. His eyes were red. Then his shoulders came forward, and he sat there with his face in his hands and cried. Not quietly, not politely. The way a man cries when he finally understands the full size of what he's done. I waited. Brenda stood straight. She wasn't going to cry. I pulled 2 documents from the folder. The first was a restraining order granted that afternoon. Credible evidence of financial elder abuse. Documented threat of fraudulent guardianship proceedings. They were required to vacate my property within 10 days. Donovan's mouth opened, then closed. The second was my revised estate plan, drafted and filed 6 weeks ago, the week after I'd met with Russell. I slid the summary page across the table. Donovan stared at it for nearly 30 seconds without speaking. The house, the accounts, the investment portfolio, everything held in the living trust, distributed after my death to the Veterans Legal Assistance Program and 2 community organizations I'd supported for years. His share, $30,000. That was it. When he looked up, his eyes were somewhere past me. Brenda's voice came out flat. $30,000. Do you know what this house is worth? Do you know what's in your... I know exactly what's in my accounts. I said, I've always known. That was your first mistake. Assuming I didn't, she turned and left the room without another word. Donovan stayed. He stood in the doorway for a long time looking at the floor. I didn't rush him. Finally, in a voice I hadn't heard since he was maybe 12 years old and had broken something he knew he shouldn't have touched, he said, I didn't think it would go this far. I know you didn't, I told him, but it did. He left without another word. The civil case settled the following spring. Brenda faced criminal charges for the unauthorized transfers. The plea agreement included full restitution, 2 years of supervised probation, and a felony conviction that would follow her into every job application she'd ever file. The false guardianship petition was dismissed. The attorney who helped prepare it was referred to the state bar for investigation. The physician who signed the fabricated wellness letter had his license placed under review. During the investigation, 3 other identical letters surfaced, all tied to guardianship proceedings against elderly account holders in the previous 18 months. All 3 of those cases were reopened. Diane Mercer provided her statement to the fraud investigators without hesitation. She told me afterward that she'd watched similar situations unfold at the service desk over the years and had missed the signs every single time. She said she wasn't going to miss them again. I told her she hadn't missed a thing that morning. She'd seen it perfectly. Donovan was not charged. He hadn't made the transfers. His name wasn't on the physician's letter. What he'd done was fail to stop it, fail to report it, and fail to protect his father while living under his roof. Those failures have consequences too. Just not criminal ones. He'd carry them differently. He called 3 months later from a number I didn't recognize. I answered, "Old habit." His voice was different, quieter than the version of himself he'd been performing in my house for 9 months. He told me he was in counseling, that he and Brenda had separated, that he wasn't calling to make excuses or ask for anything. I listened. I didn't say much. He asked if I'd ever be willing to just talk. Not about money. Not about the estate. Just talk. I told him I didn't know yet. That was the truth. He said he understood. He thanked me for answering. After we hung up, I went and sat down in the armchair by the back window, the one my wife always used when she read in the evenings. The cushion still fits her shape a little if you know where to press. I looked out at the yard, the oak tree out back, bare branches against a gray November sky. The same tree Donovan climbed every Sunday afternoon when he was a boy. Bark scraped up with the marks of small hands. I thought about what she would have said. She was a practical woman, generous heart. She wouldn't have wanted me to cut him off entirely, but she wouldn't have let me pretend none of it happened either. She had a way of holding both things at once, without letting either one win. I think she would have said, "Keep the door unlocked. Just don't leave him a key." That felt right. I made dinner that night, ate at my own table, fell asleep in my chair reading, the way I used to before any of this started. The house was quiet. Every lock changed, every account secured, my name on every piece of paper. I'd spent 28 years finding the truth in other people's numbers. Turned out I could do the same thing when the numbers were my own. I slept fine that night, first time in a long time. Fraud depends on one thing above everything else, that the target won't look. I'd spent my entire career teaching people to look. They picked the wrong man. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment and let us know where you're listening from tonight.